We are thrilled to welcome Lamar Chase, the Vice President of Current Program at Sony Pictures. With a career spanning over 2 decades in the entertainment industry, Lamar has instrumental in shaping some of the most popular and groundbreaking shows to this day. His keen eye for talent, storytelling prowess, and innovation program has approached and made him key player at Sony Pictures. Lamar will be sharing his journey and insight on the current state of the entertainment industry and valuable advice for aspiring creators to looking to make their mark on Hollywood. So sit back and relax for an inspiring conversation. With this conversation, we want to kind of start from the beginning, not all the way from the beginning, like when you're born, but like give us some grassroots.
And we know a little bit. You started at TV1.
Yeah. But like, let's take it a little bit further back as far as your foundation. Like, what city did you grow up in, and like what molded you and shaped you to be the man that you are right now?
Man, I grew up in right outside of Philadelphia, in Philly, South Philly, Southwest Philly. But I grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania. So it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes outside of the city. And it's a tough neighborhood, tough city. You know, it helps you get that edge.
Yeah.
And I kind of say it gave me a superpower to be able to read the room. Right? You kind of know who's authentic and who's not based off of that's how you had to live your daily life. You know, as you grew up out there.
Being an observer growing up in, I hate to say the hood, but just in an aggressive environment, you learn to observe people and how they, you know, their mannerism, how they speak.
Absolutely.
And just gauging them a lot more. And you're attentive to that skill.
Yeah, you do. And it was weird. It actually helps me do my job today when you're looking at casting, right? You know, and I think more of it, you know, you have to get that skill set growing up in a tough neighborhood because you know, it could be life or death, right? You have to know the way a person moving if he get ready to rob you. You have to know if a person's moving if they need help, you know, and or something's off. And so, yeah, you have to be able to read the room. You have to kind of know where you're going. You know the spots to stay away from. You know, and you just feel an energy and a presence. I always say, you know, when things happen, you know, certain places or you know, something's happening at a party, you know, growing up, you're like, yeah, it's time to go. Like, you just know it.
It's crazy because that's that almost like the part of Black culture, that hyper awareness of situations. We have to live like that, and that's kind of sad.
And so you go from that environment, and then you wanted to become a surgeon. At one point, what was the road path of like? Why'd you chose that particular field?
So I had an aunt who I was super close with. Obviously, she's passed now, but you know, she was on dialysis. Her kidneys failed her at a really young age, and I remember being a kid and seeing a graft in her arm, and I was like, you know, what's that in your arm? She said, it's a graft that they run dialysis through. It's how they filter the blood. And I said, well, I want to help people like you. And so that's what I went to school for. I went to Lincoln University, studied health science and biology. And, you know, I feel like I dissected my whole career. Like every muscle and vein, and kinesiology and biology. And, but I always had this other side of me that was creative, you know, wanting to be a DJ. I thought I was either going to be a surgeon or an A&R. Opposite sides of the spectrum.
You know what? We just went through a pandemic, so you can do both.
Exactly.
I mean, speaking of the pandemic, you had a little bit of background in the medical field. How did you get over that? And, you know, a lot of people are still struggling to get through that hurdle and the mindset, because we were just so stuck into the house and there's a lot of fear and chaos and a lot of uncertainty. How did you overcome the pandemic?
Also, with your education, you had body awareness. You know, like, okay, what is this? How to move and...
I mean, it was weird for everybody. I think that year in 2020, I went to visit a friend's house in New York. I also did some label meetings because I still deal with music. So I had some label meetings, and then I went to Sundance. I think I got sick. I got sick right before there, but I think a lot of people got sick at Sundance.
And that was before the lockdown.
That was before the lockdown. You know, that was just a weird year. When that was the same year Kobe passed. And then I felt like March, I did one meeting at LA Live, a lunch meeting. And then that Saturday we were in the house.
Wow.
And it was just, and I remember that weekend going to the grocery store and no one was outside. The streets was just eerie.
Yeah.
And because, and everybody was in the line waiting to go in the grocery store. It was like only 2 people allowed in at a time.
Yeah.
And so when you think back on that, you're like, man, but yeah, I mean, the only thing, my wife and I talked about was pretty much, just making sure I was going to make all the errands and do all the runs just to keep,
the family safe.
Yeah, the family safe. And, just took vitamins and just read as much as I could.
Yeah.
What was your routine as far as like keeping yourself healthy? You say you take vitamins. Was it also exercise? Was it also like you're pumping in with black seed oil?
Also your routine now too, because you are a medical professional kind of. Yeah, I mean, you are.
Yeah, so I I went in the garage and kind of worked out, but what was weird for me is that I think when I had it, my lungs got affected because it was really weird. I remember the first time I went into the garage. You know how when you're out of shape, right? You got to work your way back up, right? You know how your breathing is and everything, right? And 100%. I've been an athlete all my life, so I know out of shape and then getting back into shape quickly. But that was different. And I was like, man, and I remember coming back in the house and saying like, yo, that was weird. And my heartbeat was weird.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, let me chill. Let me see. I may still be in recovery. And then I just started reading more. And then obviously later on things started to come out in terms of like long COVID and who had what. And I think I'm fine now. But at that time that's the only time I got a little nervous.
I think too, it also gives you some type of anxiety about it. Like now you're so body conscious, like, hold on, what is that? Is that you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you're on the airplane, somebody coughs, you look like, hey, you got like 2 more coughs before we got to turn this plane around.
Right. I mean, still now I'm hyper aware of my whole system and how my body is working, how it's operating, how I'm breathing. After COVID, it was just like, I mean, before
we didn't care.
We didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't care.
But now it's like, okay, how am I really feeling?
And I remember being on the plane coming back from New York, and I never fly American Airlines. I had a layover in Phoenix, and I flew with this family from Long Island who I'm still cool with until this day. And we were the only ones on the plane with masks on. And the mom and the family, she was like, oh, so you've been reading and paying attention. And I'm like, yeah. And then the next time I flew, people were in hazmat.
Dude, that's life crazy. Changed after COVID. I think too, also, we were in a time warp. Like, I feel like the pandemic was just yesterday. Like, it was just went by so fast.
Because I guess now we're playing catch up.
Well, you lost 2 years, almost 2 or 3 years. And it's interesting because I'll talk to somebody and I'll feel like I just spoke to them recently. Like, no, Chase, that was like 2019. I was like, what?
So you move out of the medical field into the entertainment. What was the initial spark that said, okay, I think this might be my path?
It was my teammate. I had a college teammate because I did play ball at Lincoln too. And I had a teammate named Tyrell Bing. He's passed away now, but he was a songwriter. And we always talked music. After practice, we would listen to albums. We would say, oh, this is the next single. That's going to be the next single. And so that was always in me. And then he left school and went to Atlanta and started working on music with 2 other guys, Dwayne D-Town and Pierre Mador. And they were a group called the Corner Boys. And you may remember the moniker on different songs like Marcus Houston and Sierra and all of that. And so through Tyrell, I met the rest of the guys and I joined them more. So I was like music engineering. And then also helping with our business and kind of, everybody was creative, but somebody needed to kind of do the business and understand the business and talk to the lawyers and talk to the record labels. So Tyrell and I became those people. And I
just want to stop you right there. Deep diving into the business acumen of it. Were you handling contracts? You're negotiating pay rates?
Handling contracts. We had a certain price for songs, negotiating that, making sure paperwork is done. Because the music business is treacherous.
Oh my gosh.
You play a song, they'll take the song, you listen to the radio the next day, it's out. You're like, wait, we can get paid for that. And so we just always wanted to make sure business was on the up and up. I mean, and so I started doing that. But within that, when we work with different artists, including we had an artist that we were managing that we had signed to Warner Brothers, and I always had creative ideas for for the different songs and music videos and EPK and ancillary material. And I remember just pitching those to the labels, and they started to take them.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, there's something in TV.
Yeah. What was your package like? How did you understand the creative package, and how did you mold yourself into saying, oh, this is what an actual pitch should look like?
Well, when you're around guys that are songwriters, it's all storytelling. Right? And making a song and making a music video is and even a promo, right? It's the toughest storytelling, right? Yeah. You got to have a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. Right. In like 3 minutes. Right? And so seeing that and seeing, being around songs being built, you just kind of naturally know, creatively how things go. And then also I read a lot around like story and things like that, and just tying it all together.
I just want to take a quick moment. You mentioned reading so many times. Where you developed this habit of just reading constantly?
Man. Yeah, for Philadelphia, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, read. I mean, it's really tough just for, I hate saying it, but for Black culture, just like, okay, I read all the time. I read this, I read that, I read this. We're more like visual learners or more hands-on learners. Yeah. But you always constantly mention reading.
So I think it's interesting. You don't realize what you retain and how you grew up and what you see around you. So my mom just read all the time. Like that was her thing. Just reading. And she read like novels and like love novels and all of that. But she had like bookshelves and bookshelves of just novels. And so I just found that I always wanted to know the why of things. And the only way you get to know the why is to read.
Yeah.
And so moving into any industry, I never want to walk into the room and not have done any groundwork on learning something. You won't know everything, but you want to have smart questions tied to at least a basis of a subject. And so I always apply that to everything. And even to this day, before I go to bed each night, I always try to read, I always try to spend 1 hour out of each day learning something new.
Wow.
It could be as simple as a current event that's happening. It could be something in the financial market. It could be something, a particular topic. But I try to go to bed feeding my brain.
Wow.
Speaking of the financial market, we had a financial boom during the pandemic.
Yeah.
How much money did you make? Because me and Joel, we came out pretty well with the Bitcoin.
It was good for Bitcoin. It was a good time to put stuff in the market and like especially around discretionary items, right? Everybody was going to the store and a panic just buying stuff.
Toilet paper, like Charmin.
Check. And so it was good.
Oh, you did good. I see the smile. So you came out on top.
Yeah, we did pretty well too on Tesla and I think GameStop.
Yeah, Tesla was great. GameStop was another.
That's literally how we bought our Tesla. By I think $400,000 on Tesla.
Yeah. So we actually we never knew anything about financial literacy, about stocks, and then the pandemic kind of, everyone was talking about the stock market's going crazy, the volatility, and our algorithm was just feeding us information about like this is what you should learn, this is what you should do. Yeah. And we would wake up like 4 or 5 o'clock and watch the daily views. Yeah. And literally we would just start trading. Yeah. And we made, I promise you, we took $2,000 and made $40,000 in the stock market. Yeah. Wow. And without not knowing anything. Wow. And then we start trading options. And we start trading freaking different currencies. And we're like, how come no one told us this in the beginning? If I would have learned this when I was in school or something like, before I got into where I am now, I'd have been so far ahead.
The craziest thing is all the information was from social media. Yes. And that's how impactful it was because we were sitting down on our phones learning every single day.
Yeah. It's and I had a bit of a cheat code though.
Oh.
And so on the second leg of that flight that I mentioned, that was from New York to Phoenix and then Phoenix to Palm Springs. I met a gentleman, it's a smaller plane, so it's only, just 2 seats there. And so he saw a picture of my daughter on my phone when we landed. He was asleep when I got home. He's an older gentleman. And then he said, well, what brings you to the desert? And I'm guessing because it's not a lot of Black people out by Palm Springs. And so I said, I'm out here and And I said, well, he asked me what industry I was in, and I told him TV and film, entertainment, and also tech. And then I said, well, what's your industry? What was your industry? And he said, I invented electronic stock trading.
Whoa. Woo, sitting right next to
Nancy Pelosi, boy.
Yeah. So his name was, look him up. His name was Bill. I think Bill's last name Friedman. Yeah. And so, you'll see him on the internet. And so I went to his house. He invited me to his house. He lived about 15 minutes from me in the desert. And when I tell you, he had like 8 TVs or 8 screens on the wall, and he just taught me the basics and the fundamentals of trading. Wow. But also he had a rule, like he never went to bed with an open trade. Like he never
He closed positions.
He closed positions every day because he didn't want to think about it when he went to sleep. And so I was like, oh, okay. I don't do that now. I mean, I still play around with options, and sometimes the options, for sometimes next week and things like that. But I remember him saying that to me, and just the fundamentals, and he taught me the basics of the charts and things like that. And so it was a really great experience meeting him. But he passed away 2021 or 2022. He had thyroid cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, sharing that gym, that just probably launched you into the next stratosphere of financial literacy.
Yeah. I mean, look, we gotta have it.
We gotta have it. Definitely. I think, especially nowadays, like right now, we're living in a shift of economics is really turning around for a lot of people. It's either you gotta keep up with the times with our new technologies, or you get left behind. And there's a revolution's happening right now, and you have to inform yourself. And you have to be in a competitive fight as far as like learning something new every single day.
Willing to learn what's coming.
Willing to learn what's coming. Yeah. Look, I always think it's going to be people that will take the time to learn something, and others that's going to pay people.
True.
Right?
Oh, that's a bar.
And you have to decide what side of the fence you want to be on. Me personally, I remember when the economy went to crap in like 08, 09, whatever, stock market was crazy. I think that was one of the first time the S&P 500 was just terrible. And I remember being at TV1, and I remember the president had, said to each department head, nominate one person or 2 people for each department to be laid off.
Whoa.
Hunger Games.
It was Hunger Games, but I understood it. I don't know if I understood it as much then that I do now. When you running a business, I mean, your overhead is everything. You got to keep your lights on. And sometimes the collateral damage is
people,
right? And it's, it's just business. Yeah. And so I remember that feeling, although I wasn't ever one in jeopardy. I just remember that feeling of like, I never wanted anybody to have the ability to cut my lights off.
Yeah.
And that started a financial journey of just planting seeds and making sure you have multiple streams of income coming in, including stock market, not only a long-term plan with index funds and mutual funds, but short-term, and kind of like learning your way through that, whether it's options or kind of day trading and then I just started to meet people that were like-minded in that.
It's so important to meet like-minded individuals to kind of keep you afloat and to keep you motivated to keep doing what you need to do or elevate you to a different element.
Multiple streams of incomes is so important in the entertainment industry because it's so inconsistent.
Volatile. Yeah.
And you can see with actors now, they're, struggling just to pay bills. And these are actors that we know since the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's tough. Let's go back into your career because we can. That's
we can go. So we got fast track. Give me us 3 gems or like 3 perspectives that you learned from TV1, and then we're going to Sony.
Man, TV1 was the best experience for me. I think everybody has this dream of going to big places to start their career. Like, oh, I want to be over here. I want to be there. Right. And what was great about TV1 is I got there at a time where they were still relatively new, and so. I got a chance to work closely with each department to understand the why. Remember I always said the analytical side of me needed to know the why of things. Yeah. And so I had a great mentor there named Rose Catherine Pinckney. She was at Paramount for about 20 years. She was a part of the crew that kind of helped raise up like Girlfriends and things like that with Lara. but she was a part of the UCLA script competition.
Wow.
And she had me read like hundreds of scripts. And she said to me, she said, read enough bad scripts to know what a good script is, and read enough good scripts to know what a great script is, and learn how to make each one better.
Right.
And I took that, that knowledge, and I applied that to even how I approach content today. And so I would say one jewel for that was like read, and understand story. Right. The second was know as much as you can know in terms of production. I got a chance to go to set. I got a chance to learn. I always say, if you can get to the A zone and you have an easy workload that day, stay around and just pick up and learn. You learn something from directors. You hear what the scripty is saying, just keeping track of continuity.
Right.
You're looking at, production design, costumes, just everything. And so I became a sponge for everything. And so I would say that. And then the third would be just consistency.
Yeah. That's the hardest part for a lot of people.
And consistency to really step on complacency. Right. Because in this business, I always say, you run into people sometimes that forget their start and their journey, and they'll get a hit show. And I remember a mentor saying to me too, you're only as good as your last show. So no one cares if you had a mega show 10 years ago, but your last 2 shows bombed. They only going to remember those last 2 shows bombed, And so you want to make sure that you kind of keep pushing yourself and keep challenging yourself. And so I try to apply that every day.
Man, that was amazing. I think for us too, we learned so much. This past year, we produced our very first feature film.
Congrats.
And dude, thank you. It was a Harvard education. When I tell you, I always would go into pitch meetings and we always thinking like, you know what? I got this multi-million idea. Yeah. And then when I produced my first project, I was like, why would I even trust myself to produce this project? It was $800,000. I don't want to say the budget, but it was good money.
Yeah.
And we had learned so much from doing, like, as a producer, doing the groundwork of doing from like crafty all the way up to grip, all the way up to like, production design and the back end. And now we're going into distribution. And as so many things that we learned, we didn't understand the nuances of. And a lot of people miss out because they're not willing to do the ground. They just want to come bring you the idea. And not really understand the logistics and business behind the idea in itself. And it's like, why would I trust you to do this? $1 million project, that's a lot of money. And if you're not selling, that makes no sense. It's a bad business move.
Oh, 2 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, look, I think you also, like you said, people don't know how the sausage is made, right? And it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to get done. And I think, and like you said, it doesn't matter if your budget's $1 million or 20 million.
Yeah.
Right? You got to know how the money's supposed to be spent.
Yes.
You have to be able to read a script and know, like, okay, that's going to cost a lot based off of, it's a party in a warehouse. Okay, how are we going to feel that?
Yes.
Yes.
We had that scene. We had that scene. We had 100 extras, and the extras went down from 100 to 75 because people get there, and then we wasn't on time, and they start leaving.
Mind you, not 100 extras. You had 100 extras of old people.
Right. Yeah.
So they can't stand. They only can work for about 20 minutes.
And we didn't have medical on set.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of things that
you gotta feed them. You have to give them, water. You have to have them somewhere for them to stay. Yeah. And it's a lot that goes along with that.
100%.
And you got to know your camera packages. If you're getting a deal or not.
Negotiating deals was the biggest struggle for us because this was the first time working with named talent.
Yeah.
We had Tashina Arnold, Tommy Davidson, and I never negotiated a deal on my own.
Yeah.
So I was like, luckily we had a great lawyer, Brandon, and from Atlanta, and he was like, okay, I don't really know, so we kind of going to learn together. But he was an entertainment lawyer, so I was like, here's what I'm looking at. Here's what I can afford. Let's go into this deal together. And it was the best time.
Like you said, Harvard education.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about making a movie is really puzzle pieces put together, right?
Yes.
You may shoot the third from the last scene the first day.
Yes.
And the first scene in the script, not until day 14, right? And then you got to put that all together. And truly, I mean, you kind of know what went to take, but you really don't know what you have until you get in the post.
100%.
That's the other thing people forget.
Just even this whole entertainment industry, you have to be a people person.
Yes.
Building a charisma, loving people, navigating emotional, relational, any person like, okay, this person has this type of personality. Yeah. Navigating personalities is really big in this entertainment.
How'd you navigate personalities coming up with your journey?
Patience. I always say that, one thing you have to know about entertainment, especially when you're producing something or you're overseeing a production, is that things are always going to happen and you have to pivot. And that includes personalities. Yeah. And you'll have people that think like, oh, I work with this person, I work with that person. Like, you need to respect me the moment I walk into the room. It's like, I respect you, but I'm not
we're not kissing your feet.
I'm not doing that. And so, you just learn how to not meet them if they're here and you're here, they realize they look stupid being here. Yeah. What are you trying to get across?
Yeah.
So you get to Sony Pictures. Yeah. First day on the lot, what was your impression and how did you overcome the imposter syndrome or the expectation of the weight of your particular title?
I had been to the lot several times, developing with some of the pods, production companies that had deals over there. So I kind of knew the lot a little bit. But coming into the building, obviously it's that newness, right? You don't know anybody. You don't know what they're going to think of you. But I always say just go back to your fundamentals and go back to your grounding. And the moment I walked in at the time, Jeffrey Glazer was the head of Current. He handed me like several shows and was like, here you go.
Wow.
And so I wasn't afraid of that because that's what I did at TV One.
Okay.
I would run 8 shows at a time. That could be anything from a reality show to a crime show to 2 movie of the weeks, And so I just needed to learn the internal systems. And fortunately, I had great people on my desk that had been there. And they kind of helped me out. Okay, here's how they do this here. Here's how they do that there. Because, these big corporations, they got a process for everything.
Yeah.
Coming from a smaller place, you
learn, you wing it.
We like 5 different things. And I learned at Sony, it was like 5 different departments. I'm like, wait, you do what? Like, what's that department? Oh, wow.
Can you tell us the process of running a show?
Yeah. So I think from the executive side, you are partnered with your showrunner.
Okay.
And what does that mean? Obviously the showrunner is the brains behind the creative, and you are helping navigate that with them, and also providing resources that a mega studio can provide. And so we're talking everything from, okay, it's time to staff the writers' room. What writers do we want in the room? So we're reading folks. All the agents are sending things. As soon as a deadline article come out, you get like 50 scripts in your inbox.
Right.
And so we're talking through that. We're talking through logistics of production. We're talking through like literally almost every department that you want to staff. We're talking directors. And
production designers,
everything, costumes.
And that's all running through you.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So how it works with a studio, so showrunner, myself, and then my counterpart at a network or a streamer. So it's like a 3-headed monster in a sense.
And sometimes the streaming could change from Netflix, Amazon,
correct,
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And Sony Productions is an independent studio.
It's an independent studio. And the great thing about that, you're not tied to any one, distribution place, like the other ones are. And so we can sell everywhere.
Right.
We can use IP from like PlayStation. Obviously, you've seen success of like Last of Us, Twisted Metal,
Spider-Man,
on down to like the movie IP, on down to, other IP that we kind of garner.
Right.
Or option.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I was just want to walk through, what does your day typically look like when you get to your office?
Yeah. So the day is looking at emails to see what problems you have to solve today.
Putting out fires. You're a fireman.
Yeah, putting out fires is the word. And that's something that pops up differently on every show. Every show literally is its own journey, has its own heartbeat, right? And so it may require you talking to a rep about talent, or requires you reading a script that came in, you know, or a cut that came in for another show. It could be numerous meetings just going over the business side of things for the studio in terms of, you know, here's the budget, here's what we're spending, you know, we went over last block or last episode, right? So I'm talking to production to say like, okay, I need to talk to the showrunner because now we have to cut episode 4 down a little bit because episode 3 was bigger than the pattern budget. You know, so you have your pattern budget, which is, you know, like let's say your show is like $10 million an episode,
right?
You know.
And that's typical. $10 million is that cheap? Like, we don't know. Studio money is a little bit different.
And it looks like your pockets are pretty big too, so your money might be different too.
You said $10 million an episode. I was like $10 million for the whole show, or
scripted typically is in the millions per episode. Yeah, and so 10 is, you know, it's decent.
Decent. It's a decent, good
you know,
show.
there's shows that are 20 million an episode. Or,
Wow.
You know, 19, and you know, and it depends on the reason why it gets that high. It depends on what the world calls for and how much time it takes to shoot that. You know, so I have shows where, you know, they'll shoot for 16, 17 days. That's like a movie every episode.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, you'll talk to the production exec, who's my other counterpart within the studio. They're in charge of obviously all the logistics on the ground.
Right.
And talking with the line producer, and I'm on the creative side.
Okay.
And so, you know, we'll discuss things and we'll say like, okay, well, we need to cut this scene down. We got to talk about this. We have to talk about that. And so you're doing a little bit of everything tied to a day-to-day, you know.
I do want to touch on how the industry is pivoting in with AI.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get AI, I want to talk about the strike. How did that affected you guys from a studio perspective? Is like, okay, we have actors maybe that want to work. Now, do we go back to current programming and do we like try to license more deals as far as the things that we already have?
I think it was tough from my vantage point because there's only a select few people that are in those rooms negotiating. And so we kind of got updated as everybody else got updated.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. We were just checking in every day just to see, you know, if it was done yet. Because I think, you know, we all have friends at every level of this, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes people think, oh, executives just have the cushy jobs just sitting in the offices.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but we're also on contracts, right? And so if no money's being made, you're just as vulnerable.
You're liable.
Yeah, you're just as vulnerable too, right?
Right.
And I think everybody wanted to get back to work. And I had friends that, you know, would call me about their struggles. And, you know, I've even given some people money just to help pay, you know, mortgages and things like that. And so I think it was tough for everybody. I think whether it was financially or mentally, I think everybody wanted to figure out how everybody can come to an agreement so we can kind of get back to things. So.
And what did you learn mostly about the strike from your perspective, as far as like how do you do business now, or how do you guys move?
Because I feel like there's a restructuring with the studio systems about spending money. Because
Yeah.
money is more important. The economy is really bad. So money has that impact.
Yeah, I think it's even more. So studios can only spend money based off of how networks spend money. And I think coming out of the strike, I think everybody, you know, they were reevaluating their strategies.
Yeah.
In terms of some people may be pivoting to other types of genres that, you know, other than what they normally
more
focus
cheaper.
on. Something more cheaper, or they'll say, well, okay, we'll spend a lot for these two, but then the rest has to be at this price point. And so anything that was in development leading up to that, they had to change. And then when you look at broadcast is on a strict schedule because they have Olympics and Super Bowls and all of that. So if you normally get a 20 or 22 episode show, well, now it has to get cut down to 10 or 13 because they have to fit it in a window.
Most typical shows now are getting 7 to less than 7. So why is that?
I think it just comes down to budget and strategy.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're just testing out, see if this IP is good enough for an audience to resonate with.
No, I just think, you know, any company, when the economics are, you know, different in the country, it affects everything. Right. It's not like, okay, you know, because you got to think if interest rates are high, it costs more to build a set. Right. Lumber is 30% higher. That's 30%. Your budget's 30%.
A lot of people don't think about that.
They don't think about those things. And so, you know, and then when you tack on just higher rates and higher rates and higher rates, and then also if you have places that are minimizing tax credit spends, that pushes the budget higher as well, because now you can't amortize the show the way you normally would be able to. So you know how tax credits work, you know. You know, if you get a certain amount back, you can spend 20, but you really only spending 15 because of the tax credit. Well, you know, if that tax credit is cut, you know, you got to cut down what you spend too.
And that's all part of the decision making when you guys take on projects.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, because you know, you always hear a lot of times period is the toughest thing to buy and produce, just because every small detail of it costs money. From costumes to set design, production design, everything.
Now, developing new filmmakers and new talent, as far as directors, producers, or executives, what do you guys look for? Well, what do you look for in particular as far as like investing in?
Also, this kind of part of your skill set, because you break talent doing musically. So it goes hand in hand with that previous skill set with just breaking artists in general.
And what do you see in certain type of people? Like, oh, okay, I see the spark in this person. And what are those qualities?
I think the fun of being a part of the process to staff a room is when a show has a specific voice and you seeking out that voice. And I think giving people opportunity and seeing the hunger in some folks and just a unique way that they enter a show or write a show or a POV into a show. I love finding those people because I always say, if someone didn't give me a start, I wouldn't be here today. Right. And so I know I can't speak for all studios. I'm sure they have some sort of, you know, some sense of that. But for us at Sony, we love to kind of find those new voices. And if we have space in a room to put people in, we love to do that. And that's also directing. We have our directors program. We have our writing program. We have an actors workshop that the casting department runs. And so yeah, we love.
Speaking of those programs, me and my brother are so skeptical of programs. We feel like, you know, I know NBC just released a program, and we feel like, are they really looking at these concepts and ideas, or are they taking them and they're like, you know what, it's actually a really good idea. Let's put it through ChatGPT and we.
No, well, I think I can't speak for other studios, but I don't think that, you know, we're like just taking people's projects. I think ours run a little bit differently in terms of, you know, directors, you're teaching them about the fundamentals of it, and then you're giving them shadowing opportunities, which you hope leads to staffing opportunities. And it's the same thing for writers. So it's less about like getting your content, but more so how can we teach you how to operate within writers' rooms and things like that. And so you understand.
It's crazy, just like running a country, because you need people in the country to work on the economy of the country.
So you're developing them and then putting them into the system.
Well, you put it into the system, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be on a Sony show.
Correct.
You know, folks have had success outside of that. I think Sally Richardson came through the Sony Directors Program. She has a deal over at HBO, right? Great. You know, there's been a number of notable folks that have done that.
Do you think Hollywood could go back to where, hey, I'm gonna put you on contract, so now you work for me? Back in the 60s and the 50s, that's what they did. They had directors that belonged just to Paramount or just to Sony or just.
I don't think you're gonna go back to that because I think the cost to take people off the market may be a little bit too expensive.
They'd be basketball players. You got the LeBron James,
exactly.
He's at Sony.
Exactly.
That'd be crazy.
So what's the difference between developing and also like you going through a program, then someone pitching you a talent? Do you guys look at, okay, if they go through a program, like kind of want to take them then versus someone pitching me and a person, and then their deal might be a little bit more expensive than someone we can develop? Is that the kind of perspective?
No, it's more so, is there talent there, right? And I think the program, they have a filter because thousands of people apply for it each year, and only so many gets in. You know, and I don't run that program, but I always get information from them in terms of like, here are our standouts. Like, you know, is there opportunities in any of your rooms or shows for these folks? And so outside of that, I mean, you have agents and managers that pitch talent, and you know, you try to read as much as you can. You know, sometimes it gets tough, but you know, I at least try to read a couple of scripts a month just to kind of even see who's out there.
What is your biggest hurdle at your job currently?
That's a good question. I think the biggest hurdle is just the ebbs and flows of the business. I think, you know, I don't even know if I would call it a hurdle, just because I truly believe every production has its own heartbeat, and it operates a different way. And I think the ingredients that make up that show are different every time. And so I think if there's a hurdle, it's just kind of the constant adjustment to things, right? Because you can't approach every show the same way.
True.
Yeah. You said you're also familiar with tech. We know AI is taking over everything.
Yeah.
How do you foresee AI emerging or integrating into our particular business?
Yeah, I think like any new technology, I think they'll find the rhythm as far as ways that it's beneficial versus harmful. And I think just my little 2 cents, there's going to be some regulation around it at some point. And I think people's reaction to AI, which is justifiable, I don't want to knock anybody for whatever industry they're in, and not, you know, that fear of the effect of it. But it's just, I liken it to the internet when it came. Everybody's like, the world's going to be over when the internet came.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You know, and so, but they found a way to kind of regulate that.
Yeah.
And so I think you'll find the same with AI, you know. I think, you know, you'll find most places will say like, no, you can't run your script through ChatGPT and have them write it, you know. And if you sign, you know, your agreement that says that you didn't, but we find out you did, like,
there's penalties.
It's not bad bit. This is not good business. Yeah.
How do you personally use AI?
I don't use it a ton. I think more so I like to play around with like Photoshop and all of that stuff. So I'll use it with that, just because,
I do want to mention you are a designer. So he does clothing design. I mean, you do multifaceted things. Music, clothing design, surgery. What's going on? I'm just doing nothing.
I know.
Like, yo,
you live so many lives. How do you
what is going on?
But you know, the interesting thing about that, though, before you ask your question, music, fashion, tech, TV, film, they all go together. So you don't end up like, you know, what they say, like a jack of all trades and a master of none. Because they're literally all related.
All the same thing.
They're all related. They all need each other. They all need each other.
100%. Why did you dive? What inspired you to get into the clothing and apparel industry?
I think for so long I have been putting it off. I've always loved fashion since I was a kid. Sneakers has been my thing. If anybody that knows me know I'm a sneaker guy. I got hundreds of pairs. And so I just always just loved how that can speak, you know, fashion can speak for you. Right. And I believe everybody styles their style. I don't believe in, you know, when people are like, oh, like, why they dress like that? Well, they felt that way. That's their expression, right? You know, not everybody needs the most expensive clothes or the flyest clothes. You know, they may just wear Chuck Taylors and a flannel each day, and that's their thing, right? That's their comfort zone. That's their armor. And so for me, I wanted to build a fashion brand, which my brand is called Chase Visions. To speak to, it means pursuing a passion with imagination, and no matter what you do. So whether you're creative, engineer, doctor, you know, I want you to be able to put on clothes that you feel as your armor to go, you know, face the ebbs and flows of the world. And so that's what I built the brand for.
So what is your day-to-day wearing when you're around the studio? They're like, you the flyest executive I ever seen. Everyone's wearing suits. You come in with the Chase Vision hat.
I literally come in like this. Like I do most days.
Even in your meetings?
Even the board meetings and all these white
Even in the
faces.
meetings.
So what did the other people say? They're like, is that really is he? Do people
give you like a side eye?
Or do they like say,
no
are you
side
supposed to be here?
I think it's a little different. There's no side eye. I think people come in as they are now. I mean, obviously, women can't come in with this, certain way, and and guys, you're not coming in with like cut off shirts on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I think now it's just whatever your expression is, right?
Wow.
And so they're used to it, and when they met me, I had hats on.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe you change just because of the room you go into.
Ooh.
You walk into the room as you and you stay as you. That's what people gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And so my superpower is being me. And everything that comes with that. And me wearing a hat or me wearing a jacket or a chain doesn't change the intellectual side of me either. Because I believe I can fit in any room.
Right.
And clothes doesn't, that doesn't matter.
I do want to tackle on this. It's going to be a brief segment. When you met your wife.
Oh yeah, that's good.
We have to talk about the date relationship
now. Bro, it's rough. I'm glad you found one because if you was in 2024, Instagram, social media.
When did you meet your wife and how you met your wife?
So I met my wife through a mutual friend.
Okay.
And I remember I saw her at an event that I had for one of my shows out here, actually.
Okay. You was our executive.
Yeah.
She was checking your pocket. It was easy for you.
She didn't know who I was.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think when I first saw her, I think I was like, "Oh, you look nice," and I kept walking.
That was the game.
Yeah. And then we ended up talking again. I ended up running into her again at that same event later on that night, and we chatted some more, and then we just decided through time to kind of connect, and I think the first conversation we had, we just sat and talked for like 4 hours.
Wow.
And everything from like music to financial to just different things. And what I love about her is that she wasn't tripping off of this industry. And when I mean tripping off of it, the good and the bad and where people's minds can go.
Right.
Oh, you're around beautiful people all the time.
Yeah.
How are you not seeing them? Oh, and the other thing was understanding the schedule of an executive. Because in my job, we're moving around to different cities and countries overseeing shows, right? And so just giving you the ability in the room to do your job and understanding when is your time, it's your time.
Now, how do you balance that relationship aspect with your career and your personal relationship?
And also, how did you set a foundation and say, hey, this is what my life looks like? Did you go into the relationship stating this is what it looks like and putting these boundaries up and say, sorry, you can't cross it?
Yeah. We had conversations about like, here's how my life works and what I do. And here are my goals within that, right? And I think having that early dialogue gives a bit of understanding.
Right.
And so when we decided to have a family and where we were going to set up shop, we stayed in the desert because her family's there and wanting to make sure she had a foundation. So if I'm gone for 2 or 3 weeks,
right, she has a support system.
She has a support system versus living somewhere else, and
feel isolated.
Yeah, she feels isolated, and so we just built on that, and we just try to find time where we could find time. Having a small kid is tough as well. But yeah, we find time. And then for me, once 6 or 7 o'clock hits,
you out,
and weekends hit. Yeah,
So you don't have like a habitual nature of just working.
I do at times. Yeah, there are times, but I do kind of give a heads up, like, yo, this week is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Or it's gonna be one of them weeks, or I'm working on, TV, I gotta get some designs out. I got, to mix this album.
Yeah.
Wait,
and so you still do music too?
Yeah, I still do music, yeah.
You do a lot.
Yeah.
I know, we gotta catch up.
I oversee projects here and there. Most recently, I was overseeing an artist that I have named TMC The Don. He's a rapper from Baltimore. He's a kind of a singer rapper.
Wait, so this is a label or you just...
He's signed to Atlantic.
Atlantic.
Yeah,
Are
Atlantic.
you just overseeing like a management type of thing, or
yeah, management and production.
Okay.
Yeah, and so so we were heavy in terms of putting the album together.
And you can leverage your relationship with other partners because you're doing business in the executive realm, saying, "Hey, I know this person from this place and this person from that place."
But remember, I started in music, so my relationships were built off of that.
Music.
TV came second, and so, but again, because they all speak to each other.
Honestly, I'm just so impressed with all the things you do and being multifaceted. Because a lot of people, especially in our culture, we kind of did have one direction. I'm gonna just do this.
Yeah.
But you do almost everything and do your career at the same time.
Well, you have to, right? I never want to get older and say, man, I should have did this. I wish I would have did that or took the time to do that. And it's like, while you have the energy to do it, just go do it.
Yeah. Right. And how do you balance too with your daughter? With your daughter, right?
Yeah, have a daughter.
And how do you
and a son? Yeah.
And a son. Oh, how do you balance your kids? Like, how do you put time in for them?
Well, my daughter's gonna force you to put time. Yeah, she's gonna force it. But I think one of the things I asked God through all of that is always make room for me to be present. I said I didn't want to miss moments, and so I've had the ability with the job that I do to not miss moments. I can go to my daughter's events at school. I can she's into theater now. I can go to her plays. And I can just have fun with her around the house, and just sit there and just be present there, whether it's playing a video game, whether she just wants me to watch her draw or make me draw at the same time, it's being present and they don't forget that.
That's their foundation.
That's their foundation.
And you make sure of that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, is your daughter going to step into the industry at some point?
And are you worried
to like
because you're the executive, and are you weary your daughter entering this industry?
So her theater coach, he teases me. He's like, your daughter's a star, right?
Right.
And he knows that makes me cringe.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, I believe like we'll see how she takes this as she keeps
progresses
growing.
in life,
progresses, and and my wife sort of handles the kind of the momager role, and I just kind of come in later on. It's because when you do a job, you don't want to be overly critiquing your kid, and what they're doing, and so I just
So we're gonna see her next Spider-Man 6. I got a daughter, right? She in there making a move. How'd she get this wrong?
What's interesting? She's 5, but she literally just found out what I do.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, she had never known. She's like, Daddy's always on emails or on phone calls or traveling or on airplanes. And then I finally said, do you know what I do? She's like, no. I said, I make TV shows. And she says, you do? She said, do you make kid shows? I was like, no. She said, oh, man. I thought you were going to make something for me.
Yeah, exactly. So now you got to put down your slate.
Her pitch. Excuse me, sir.
So now you're in the boardroom, so we got to make kids shows. So the next focus is...
okay, wait, what about your son? What does he do? How old is your son?
So he's my stepson through marriage, but I always, call him my son. He's in college. He's in his first year of college.
Whoa, you have a whole adult son.
Yeah. My wife was young when she had him. And he's on a track scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, he's just doing that. But he loves fashion too. He loves sneakers. He's the coolest kid.
Yeah. That's impressive, man.
He called me the other day, like, I got these shoes in the room. You think you can start a GOAT account and sell these shoes? I'm like, yeah, I got you.
Now, where do you see your particular next, I want to say, escalation of Chase Visions, or what do you aspire to do next? Do you want to be the Tyler Perry mogul, multi-billionaire production studio?
Yeah, some form of fashion of that. I haven't zeroed in on the TV and film side where that leads to. I think right now I enjoy my time at Sony. I get to work on some amazing shows. And we'll see what happens there. And in terms of Chase Visions as a fashion and music, I always continue to kind of push the envelope there and kind of continue to build up those companies. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I love to be multifaceted. I would love to, I always say the thing about when you work, put your everything into it so you can maximize getting the most out of it. Because in the end, you want your time back, right?
Yeah.
That's what you do it for, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's controlling your time, right? And so, you know, you have to figure out when that time is that you want to control your time. Some people retire and never prepare to get their time back.
Yeah.
How do you get your time back? Do you go on vacations? Do you do like, hey, sabbaticals, I'm out for 3 or 4 months out of the year and I go to Bora Bora?
No, I think you find your spots, right? I think whether it's, you know, sometimes when I need to think, I'll go to the basketball court and just shoot around or, you know, or I just sit still. Or if I'm coming from the desert to LA, I'll just drive for 2 hours with no music on and just kind of think things through. You have to find your ways to kind of reset. Because sometimes vacations, you know, I'm not a go travel 6 hours and go sit on the beach.
Yeah.
What is it?
That's
Down the
stressful
street.
for me. Like, you know, and so if I'm a really rest and reset, I'm just gonna do that at home.
Yeah.
Where is you're most peaceful?
Yeah, where you're most peaceful, yeah.
You're a natural storyteller. Do you have your own stories that you want to tell?
Yeah, I want to tell inspirational stories tied to just, you know, persevering from wherever you come from, right? And I think just because you come from a place, just because you experience a place, you know, I know some people don't know how to navigate through that, and so they fall into things that could be negative, whether it's you know, drug use or whatever. And I want to teach people to kind of use some of that as fire, right? And to push you. I was having a conversation with my parents the last holiday, and I said to them, you know, you guys are my biggest teachers, not by what you told me, but my being able to observe your mistakes.
Ooh.
Because it taught me everything I did not want to do.
Yes.
And I think there's value in that.
Yeah.
You know.
How do you navigate those conversations with someone that's older than you or that your elders, and how do you approach it? When
I think you approach it with I think people that know me know I'm coming from a place of like not like putting a mirror in front of you saying you're imperfect, because we all are, right?
Right.
But it's there's a lesson in everything. You know, there's a lesson in the good and bad, and so I just talked to him about that. You know, I saw something that was bad, and I said, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. And so, you know, that was my takeaway. So there's a takeaway. I believe there's a takeaway to every situation, good or bad.
Man, this has been an amazing journey, amazing ride, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think our overall theme is the journey of life can take you through ups and downs, and at the end of your, I guess, just a journey where you're reaching out your crossroads, you want to leave a certain type of legacy. What do you want to leave behind for your future? I mean, or your past for the future generations to look at and say, I want to be like Lamar Chase.
I think in the end, for me, I do want to have a venture firm.
Okay.
And I believe, you know, there's a kid somewhere with a bow tie business that wants to start his business, and I want to be able to kind of give them money to do that. And I think everybody needs a start, you know, and as many people that you can give a word to, or you can give $1 to kind of get it, you know, to help them with their start, you know, that's what I want to do. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And we always ask this, in life, have you found what you're looking for in life? People always say, I want to be the executive. I want to be the top doctor in life.
And we always have pursuits, right? We always pursuing a dream. I want to be on a TV show. But when you accomplish all your goals and dreams, what are you actually looking for? What is Lamar Chase
actually look for?
Actually, I'm still figuring that out. Yeah, because I feel like no matter what the title says, I don't feel like I've done anything yet.
Wow. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's an indirect fire that keeps me hungry and to keep growing and learning. You know, I walked into the president of Sony's office the other day and I said, hey, you know, there's things that I need to grow at, like let me know, because I am truly a student of the game, and I do want to learn different things. And she gave me some pointers on a couple of things, and so I want to add those to the arsenal, because, you know, if you can keep adding things to your tool belt, you know, it's just going to make you a beast as you tackle other things.
Mm-hmm. What is one of the most takeaways that you learned at Sony that you apply to your daily life?
The takeaways. I think just hard for focused work can lead to success, right? Like, and I think preparation is key. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you guys were talking about your movie earlier. Yeah. You know, if you don't prep well, you can't deliver well.
Yeah, 100%.
And you can take that and apply that to most parts of your life. Yeah.
You don't prep well, you don't.
Well, hey, Lamar Chase, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys.